Hi, time for an edition of the Thought Project, just so you know, and we're going to be starting out with Rebecca Black's original song, Friday, the most terrible and super catchy song, Friday. I'm not even gonna bother dancing.
7 a.m. waking up in the morning, gotta be fresh, gotta go downstairs, gotta have my bowl, gotta have cereal, seeing everything, the time is going, ticking on and on, everybody's rushing, gotta get down to the bus stop, gotta catch my bus, I see my friends, kicking in the front seat, sitting in the back seat, gotta make my mind up.
I don't even feel like dancing, I just want to stare at the video because it's so odd. I think we're gonna get through like the refrain I'm gonna cut off. So, talking about a song that sounds like it was computer generated and is completely terrible, but also had an extremely low budget. And as far as I know, Rebecca Black actually made it, her family made it, and it was made at extremely low cost as far as the video. So, it kind of shows you how easy it is for somebody, if they decide to step out on their own, to actually make a song and release it in a video, and it was a one hit wonder. I always wondered about it just because she sounded like she was so auto tuned that it almost sounds like a synthetic, with those synth voices. It's just not a real person at all. But anyways, let's get into the show today. So I want to go through a couple things. First of all, it had come to my attention a while back. People were concerned, like, who was this chick that was so disgusting at Luther that, she openly masturbated, violated U.S. intel, had students attacked. She stole a bunch of material for me and set up another singer who brought the Russian mafia. And as I detailed in earlier episodes, I threatened to stalk and kill Prince, and then, of course, Prince died. And I had reported all this like 20 years ago. And I'd run into multiple people that turned out to be Russian assets who were really big on complaining about it and trying to protect her, which ended up providing more evidence to the fact that she really was working for the Russian government. And it eventually came to be known that she was basically somebody who's just tied in with Putin. She's still living in the U.S. as far as I know. She's still living in the Twin Cities with her husband there, and he supposedly works for a banking company in the U.S., which is kind of scary. But at least you know the truth about that. So I'm going to put her picture up right here just so you know. And she had a fake alias last name, whatever. That one right there. Can you see it? Right there. Yep, the girl in the picture next to the guy. She's wearing a black shirt, got her hand up. Yep, that one. So I was stuck with her for 2 semesters at Luther, basically taking care of her. And it just got to be bizarre because people were asking me, like I was supposed to stop her from doing all these crazy things. I couldn't do anything with her. I didn't want to not be her roommate anymore. It was just too much for school to ask me to take care of somebody, And they gave her an honor, like an honor tassel when she graduated. But then they also claimed they weren't going to give her a degree. And it was just very weird. And I think it was only possible because of the people who were working at the school, Patricia, Dan, Buffalo Bill. She had the support of Sarah Wilhelm. A lot of us used to make jokes like that Sarah and Wilhelm appeared to be more her parents than they were mine, because they definitely weren't mine. They're clearly just trying to traffic me. And, she took a bunch of material from me and set up some albums for her supposed cousin, who has been a failed performer in the U.S. and actually tried to launch herself with a drink company back last year and ended up losing her sponsorship because she was so terrible. But so, somebody who's committed a lot of crimes and is still living free in the U.S. and responsible for a huge amount of phishing and blocking police communications. And when I was living in the early 2000s, spent a lot of time blocking federal communications. She would just come right in on Signet Systems and start attacking people in offices where I was working and make up all kinds of crazy stories. Like, really out of control psychopath working for the Russian government. And still allowed to be free because, like, why? Because she's 5'3" or 5'4"? Little? Nope. I think it's because she works in Russian intel, as a number of sources have already explained. I mean, a lot of other people have gotten in trouble and given her up. She's still free. I don't know what's going on, people. But, it is the Twin Cities where she set herself up, and as far as I know, is still living today. And I think, the fact that she had threatened the whole situation with George Floyd and then all the riots, definitely a classic example of Russian instigator behavior. Definitely a friend of Putin. I used to make fun of her and call her Putin Popper because she did a lot of drugs too. So, Anyways, but the picture's out there, so anybody who really wants to do something about it can go do it. For me as a witness and a victim and a survivor, and so there's a life to live. It's not my job to go after these people. It's government's job. You know, and you can't go after victims and tell them they're supposed to spend the rest of their life working on those issues because it's not up to them to do that. It's government's job, right? So, but the picture's out there now. If somebody wants to do something about it, it's been more than enough time for that to actually have happened. So, way too much has happened in recent years. Anyways, there's new reports coming out saying that inflation on food prices is actually going to stop. So that's a nice relief. Also, I think it's worth noting that the Chinese are losing investors now at a fast rate. It isn't just a few big ones. They're all pretty much pulling out in a hurry and looking where to go. Some guy was on the Joe Rogan show, Peter Zohan, that he said that in 10 years, China will reach disaster because they have 100 million less people than they have calculated. That's an interesting statement. I have to say I'm not really sure what that has to do with anything because China's already dropped their economy and they're kind of like their ability to even threaten the U.S. is pretty much over due to what's happened to their economy now. It's over now. It's today. Right? So, but whatever. And let's talk about, I want to show you something. If somebody is part of Russian mafia in the U.S., a signal they'll make, especially if you're in the D.C. area. Because there's so many times where I try to talk to people and I would think that they were a safe person, and then I'd find out they really weren't. I was at an event or whatever, and they try to make a signal to another person. They'll start going like this. Yeah, that's a Russian signal. That means they're doing something in Russian intel, even if it's just like on a volunteer basis. And oftentimes, if they're really crazy, they'll do this and then they'll smile at somebody else. So it's like really, really super creepy. So it's like, or they'll start doing weird stuff with their pen like this, like that. It almost looks like there's something else wrong with them behaviorally. And I used to think that was what it was. But then I figured out just after asking people, like, am I imagining this? Does this look like a behavioral disorder? Or is that a signal? No, there's two people who confirmed that it was actually a signal. So if somebody starts doing that to you, they're not on the U.S. side. They're not on like Australia's team or England's team or China or anybody else. They are clearly working for Team Russia. So just know that if you live in the capital area, it's a very common signal. And if you don't want people to think that's what you're doing, then don't make it, really, because it's offensive and gross. So here's another one. I just have to go through this because one thing I had to like sort of grapple with and explain to people is that there's this idea of modern feminists as being people who support women. No, modern feminism in the US, it's nothing like what it was in the 90s, is basically women that are supposedly woke who are completely comfortable with having other women and children trafficked. And it's this bizarre idea of women as almost like they're worse than the men, like they're trying to outdo the men on grotesqueness or taking the position of men by becoming the slave owners and the slave traffickers of the modern era. And that's why so many people are disgusted by modern feminism and why I don't consider myself a modern feminist. I believe in civil rights for people. I believe in treating people decently, but I don't want anything to do with modern feminism because I'm not interested in trafficking kids or other people. Case closed. So that's the crux of that issue. It's getting more simple than that. And I want to note something else that's sort of archaic, just really quickly, because I'm making these shows shorter and shorter if I can. There was a really interesting article up on CNBC by Rebecca Picado, and she said that there was an old archaic idea that anyone who gets in a job must stay in it for a year. It's true. It was always taught to me as a rule to try to stay in a job for a year, and it's really good if you can. But it's just really hard, like when somebody is, so you take a job because you need money, and then you get to you're 3 months in and it's just terrible. Or maybe it had a really good title and you get 3 months in and it's horrible, right? Or the place is just totally legit. Like you're not going to stay, because it's too dangerous or it's too weird or place makes you sick and you don't want to go there every day. Well, what about also or even you get to the fourth interview and you just realize it's horrible and you got to find a way out of it. Like this whole idea of trying to push forward despite the odds, sometimes it's what you got to do temporarily, but it's never a really good idea to try to stay a whole year at a place if you can avoid it that's that dangerous. Now there are some jobs people get into where if they left they might be killed or there's some other extenuating factor that keeps them in it that's kind of horrible, but you can only imagine those, and there's no reason to spend a lot of time on it just to know that they could have a family that's sick or something else could be going on or they could be compromised in some way. There's all kinds of possibilities, and for some people it really is just that they haven't had a job in a long time and they've got to stay wherever they are no matter what, just kind of hang on. Or, there's nothing wrong with staying in a job if you actually just like it, even if it's not quite right. That happens too. But, there's also consequences for all of that. So, anyways, and some people take jobs that just don't pay as much simply because they want the experience for another job that they're going to have later in life. And that totally happens too. But then those jobs can become completely meaningless if it turns out that you're not going to be moving on to that higher level job, right? So, the point is, it's a completely unrealistic and archaic idea to expect someone to stay in a job for a year and to not job hop. Sometimes job hopping is completely integral to your survival. And I would also note another idea around jobs and life and sort of work is that I had a boss years ago. And I definitely stayed with that guy and worked with him because I was getting published while working with him. But he got his entire think tank in trouble because he had these really backwards ideas on women and their lives. And he thought that women, like if they talked to him, it could mean that they were hitting on him or that there was a sexual attraction. If you were to say to him that you were actually just talking to each other, because you work together or were employed together. I mean, employment, of course, work is just work. Employment means you actually get paid and there's benefits and it's got this contract relationship. Whereas work could be like yard work, or you could be doing volunteer work, or you could be actually in employment. Like there's all kinds of possibilities with work. But the point is that, people talk to each other for all kinds of reasons, opposite or completely out of line with gender or even sexual attraction. And that has no basis or even relevance to romantic relationships. And quite often I do find it's mostly only men that are sociopaths or psychopaths that actually even confuse those issues because it's so obvious, because attraction is such an obvious thing. And it has so many signals that go with it. And when it's not happening, like there's an attraction but nothing's going forward, that's also usually pretty obvious too. It's just like, oh, there's attraction, but there's not going to be anything else. Could be because they're employed together. It could be because they don't have the right mix to move forward. It could be because someone doesn't really want to, whatever it is. And then you have to consider that attraction relationships aren't even lined up on a, heterosexual basis anymore. So it's just kind of bizarre to think that someone would be talking to you in a professional space and to assume the first reason had anything to do with sexuality as opposed to work. Right? Or professionalism. So, anyways, I want to note something here. Spotify, this is really interesting, changing topics back to entertainment. Spotify has lost 44 million thanks to Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, the Sussexes. So, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. They have lost their money. They have lost that money because of them. And I really think Spotify has grounds to sue them actually for this and to get the money back if it's possible. As far as her career is going, she's just done. But it's kind of interesting. I want to be like, Spotify, I can totally put together a series for you. I can totally you want me to sing and do a series? Like, I can totally do one of those, just sing. Just sing. I'm like, here. So, and then I have one funny tidbit here at the end in entertainment industry. Ariana Grande is apparently dating Ethan Slates from Wicked on Broadway. She's separated from her husband, and he's separated from his wife. And apparently he just had a kid with a wife in 2022. What's funny is this guy does not look like Ariana Grande at type at all. Like she's totally dated these guys who were super tough in the past. And now she's dating this skinny white guy with red hair. I'm not trying to be mean and profile him, but he does not look like the other guys that she has dated, which is probably a good change of pace for her. It's just really interesting. It involves a guy who's actually, not really, I don't know what you want to say. I mean, how do you go from these sort of tough looking guys that she's dated to that kind of a guy? Do you know what I mean? It's just a really big switch. I'm going to go ahead and sing Sarah McLachlan's Angel again. I sang it as a teaser for the show, but I like to actually include it in the show as well, just in case. Oh, excuse me while I scratch my nose this Friday. I'm tired. Ready for some R&R. Oh no, we have horrible commercials playing in my show. Let's hold on for a second. No, we don't want to do anything with you. I'm going to talk over this guy until he goes away. Oh, that's terrible. Commercials in the middle of my show. I don't like that. Here we go. And some of the reason I do the show this way is I just want to show you how easy it is to get on a platform. I mean, it's really easy to do YouTube, put on a little bit of an outfit, slap on some makeup, do your hair a little bit, put together a show, right? Kind of easy. Spend all your time waiting for that second chance, or a break that would make it okay. There's always some reason to feel not good enough, and it's hard at the end of the day. I need some distraction. Oh, beautiful release. Memory seeps from my veins. Let me be empty, oh, and weightless. Then maybe I'll find some peace tonight. In the arms of the angel, light warm here. From this dark old hotel room, and the endlessness that you fear, you are pulled from the wreckage of your silent reverie. In the arms of the angel, may you find some comfort here. Tired of the straight line, and everywhere you turn, there's vultures and thieves at your back. The storm keeps on twisting. Keep on building the lies that you make up for all that you lack. It don't make no difference escaping one last time. It's easier to believe in this sweet madness, all this glorious sadness that brings me to my knees. In the arms of the angel, lie warm here. From this dark cold hotel room, and the endlessness that you hear, you are pulled from the wreckage of your silent reverie, and in the arms of the angel, may you find some comfort here. In the arms of the angel, may you find some comfort here. And that's it. That was a show for today. So thank you for sticking with me, even that weird little commercial that popped up while I was trying to work on my computer here. That's so annoying. But anyways, and totally something we can skip in other shows coming up. So have a good weekend. Talk to you later.